recording kick. So we'll be able to share that recording with this team after the session. We'll share it with Andrea, who can share out all the great resources along with today's presentation. There's some great interactive links here as well. But in our student engagement focus, we worked with Andrea to focus on some agenda items. But before we get there, let's meet the Lincoln Learning staff who's here to support you today. Again, I think I've worked with this group quite some time. My name's Casey Sadler, though, if you're new to the session, Senior Manager of Training with Lincoln Learning. I've been with the organization over 17 years. I would say a solid 15 of these years have been in some realm of training, either our staff or our clients. I have worked with client training all 17 years, actually. But I've focused a little bit more on internal and external over the last several years, helping our teams create our help centers and our internal knowledge base, videos, and my favorite, training sessions. At the end of the day, though, I'm a wife, a mom, a dog mom. I also have a dog, giant German Shepherd. If you ever had a session with me, he's probably in the background if I'm at home. And I'm also a cheer coach, so I hope to bring that excitement to the session today with that energy that you have to have when you're coaching cheer. Our current goals are to go to Disney, so it's been an exciting adventure so far this cheer season. My partner in crime most days is Sheena Donovan, who's here with us today. She's going to serve as your moderator. Sheena, do you mind doing a little bit of interaction, because I know you'll be speaking throughout the session as well?
Sure. So my name is Sheena Donovan. As Casey said, I've been with Lincoln Learning for a little over 3 years now in product development and training. Prior to that, I spent 13 years in human services with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the vocational setting. I also did some training there as well. As you can tell, I am also a dog lover. I have she's going to be 9 in a couple days, a 9-year-old Hungarian Vizsla named Macy. I love to travel. I like to eat all the food, and something that I didn't put here, but I just want to say it because I'm so excited. I'm about to finish a book. So I'm a huge book lover, and I have to renew my membership at the library. They kicked me out of the system, so got to get that done.
Thanks, Sheena. She'll be monitoring the chat for me with multiple screens and lots going on today. She'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So she will interrupt me. She has no hesitation in doing that. And if you have something important to jump in on, you can also do the same. And then one of our feature folks today, who's always a joy to have with us, is Tanya. Tanya is your your client success specialist. She's been with the organization. I think we've worked together all 15 years she's been here. Tanya, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more for maybe some of the folks that are newer on the call?
Sure. Hi, VLAC team. I'm new as your CSS this year, but again, I've been with Lincoln for 15 years, and I told Andrea that you guys are now stuck with me, because once I get a client, I don't let them go. So we will be building long-term relationships. I'm your go-to person, so I am here for anything you need.
Yeah, we work hand in hand, Tanya and the client success team and the training team work hand in hand together. So we often troubleshoot. So she's your single point of contact and has no hesitation in getting hold of our team if we need to add another session or grab some new unique resources. So let's talk about this agenda. We got a long one in here. So what you don't see in the agenda is like a 2.5 or maybe like a 2A. We are going to take a break at some point today, probably after we go in to physically see some of the clipboard and group components. So we do want to make sure that today's a pretty long session, but we are going to make sure we build in that break. If you need to walk away for a minute, feel free. It is 2 hours that you're spending with us today. We're going to start talking about student engagement. We're going to do a little bit of a brainstorming exercise because that's going to carry over to some of this groups and clipboard components. So we're going to do a little bit of review. I know we've talked about groups several times, but we're going to always try to level up our knowledge and our experience with groups, and now adding groups within the clipboard as well. We're then going to go down the road of common accommodations and modifications. We actually pulled some information from our instructional services team and some information that I think the team at large here at VLAC has been implementing. And we're going to walk through some of those scenarios, talk about them, and then do some of that step-by-step. Added feature, we removed a little information earlier this week, and we added some AI detection and student support. We actually have a new resource to share with this team. And of course, throughout our themes, we're going to talk about relationship building and how we can do that in each of these agenda pieces today. So that's going to kind of be part of our common theme. Feel like it maybe is a theme that VLAC's pretty familiar with, has probably have heard those terms before. We're going to keep sprinkling those in throughout the session. So let's get started. Let's talk about some of this engagement. Let's start some brainstorming, because this is really going to help us build some of the pieces that we have, and I have no idea what my PowerPoint was just doing. I guess it had a mind of its own. But let's talk about student engagement. What are the things that we do in a classroom to engage our students? So I'm in a classroom, you know, what's the term now, brick and mortar? We're in that brick and mortar, and we are really focusing in on ways to engage our students when we're face-to-face. What are some of those examples that you can think of for engaging your student face-to-face? You can put those in the chat, you can unmute. Let's brainstorm together. This is where I need that timely music. Do, do, do.
Nice.
Awesome. So we have some stuff coming in right now. In case you're typing in the chat, it's hard to read and type at the same time. We have some positive feedback. That's one of my favorites. I love feedback. I have one of my favorite sessions to actually do and dive into feedback. So Brittany, we might come back to you on some of those feedback options there. Sheena does a great job of life experiences to engage any learner. That's just not students. If you've taken a session when she's the lead, that is definitely a great aspect of those sessions that she delivers are those real life experiences. Interactivity, making jokes, keeping things lighthearted, I think is a pretty good one. SEL questions. Jennifer, I'd love to hear more about that, maybe some of the questions that you ask. Connectors, questions and answers, asking questions, asking for volunteers, fun activities, and the list goes on. That's awesome. So let's shift our mindset a little bit, and let's talk about what it's going to be like. Okay, why is that was not supposed to show yet. Those two questions were supposed to show. So again, open-ended questions, group work, warm-up activities, connections. Those were just some examples in case we didn't have the lively engagement that we should in the session, but really didn't have a fear. I figured VLAC would be engaging. Sheena, you had your hand raised?
I do, Casey. I'm sorry. I'm the problem. It's me. There was a word missing in your slide, so I had to edit it, and that's probably why that is coming up early. So I do apologize for that, but I wanted to fix your slide so it was grammatically correct.
Okay, sorry. That's okay.
That's my fault.
Interactivity. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know I didn't go crazy. So again, so our next question is how do you engage students online then? So in a classroom, we're making those connections completely different, right? So online, we don't have the face-to-face. We can't maybe necessarily have those experience talks. So how are the ways that you would engage a student online? Video message. Jennifer, I'm coming back to you. Jennifer, you're going to unmute at some point today. I want to hear more about these SEL questions. If you have a laundry list of them.
I've created a file this year because that's how I open my live lessons of those pictures, you know, like there's 9 pictures, 12 pictures. How are you feeling? I can't get enough of them. They're all over the place.
Oh, I would love to see that resource if you're willing to share it with me. I'd love to highlight that for other teachers that we work with. But if you haven't shared it with your fellow staff members, do that. That sounds amazing. That's a great way to engage those students.
I will. Thanks.
Everybody wants to share. Please share. Yes, those things that we do are more of that interaction piece, right? So there's also, in addition to just engaging online, we also see the engagement during a virtual meeting. So those are two separate things, and I see them both kind of came in, so you don't have to answer this question again. So when we talk about online, we have to remember that there's that independent learning that happens as well, right? So our online learners are sometimes working through components, and then we have virtual meetings. Those virtual meetings are where those SEL questions come into play to start to kick off those virtual classes. That's where that camera on is probably essential. Even if the students don't have them on, you have your camera on. You're making that connection. We know that that virtual is the closest we can get to that classroom engagement. So that's where we can do the things like life experiences and engagement. But when it comes to that online learning itself, we can use things that we may not think of. And I go to LMS. I go to that Buzz Agilix experience. And if you're using another LMS for another curriculum, it may be something else. But they all have similar features. Things like discussion boards. Buzz has a really cool thing called student choice. And that's kind of like next level Buzz training. We don't have to get into it. But it can go as in-depth as that, where we give the students kind of options. There's also things like journaling and blogging features that you can add in, or even some of the engagement is the curriculum components. So maybe you're working with a student via email and that student's struggling with something. Point them back to those interactive learning objects that we know have that interaction piece. Maybe that will engage the student a little bit better. Anybody know a few of those learning objects that would be a little bit more engaging than the others? This is a tough question. So Lincoln Learning's learning objects: read it, teach it, watch it, play
How about
it.
to show it?
Yeah, show it. Yep, so the show is going to be a place where they can demonstrate mastery. It's going to allow them to engage with the content, show what they know. We also know that there are learning objects like the play it, which is a game, or a watch it, that's a video. Our practices can, yeah, that's Sheena, you're right where I was going, those practices. Those practices can have literal interactive learning objects, is what they're called, ILOs. So the student can engage with it. Maybe it's a presentation they interact with. It could be a crossword puzzle. It could be something they slightly go offline, but they're getting that text out. Think about my elementary students, right? I love it when they get to go offline and use their hands and engage with pieces that even they have around the house. For our secondary kiddos, we may not see the play-its as often, but they're still going to have that engagement level and other things like FET simulations or videos that really bring those abstract concepts to life. So that engagement is built into Lincoln Learning curriculum. We can also use those pieces to reinforce as if we were in a classroom. We can ask some of those open-ended questions found in the introductions of Read It. So kind of back to Jennifer's piece, hey, I'm going to kick it off with some SEL questions, and maybe I'm either going to reflect on something that they've done in recent Read Its and re-ask a question, re-ask some of those open-ended or thoughtful questions. We might want to use some of the warm-up activities that are also found in the introductions of some of our learning objects as pieces. We may also see in our discussion boards, circulate back to those. Ask those SEL questions. Hey, it's the beginning of the month. How's everybody feeling? What are you doing? It may not be something they do that day or every week, but maybe you throw a discussion board question in and you ask kind of those feelings. So we can really start to relationship build because we're getting to know those students. We're getting to know them as not just how they learn, but who they are. So that may help us realize, okay, I have quite a few students that are athletes based on how they're doing. I'm seeing those things. I can then theme some of my other questions. You can also use agendas to pose open-ended questions to students. Hey, think through this today while you go through this lesson, and we've learned how to do agendas. So we can still, we often find as virtual teachers, like even right now, right? Like, how am I going to get you to engage? I'm going to keep asking you questions. I'm going to ask you about experiences because I want you to stay engaged. I want you to take notes. I want you to do those things. But when a student's at a distance, so haven't seen you for a while, maybe you're in the Certified Lincoln course, how am I going to engage with you? Well, I'm going to talk about some of that engagement being the built-in pieces by Lincoln and bringing those back into my virtual conversations with you. So again, we can do breakout rooms, we can ask chat questions, we can engage in the same way. We can even take some guided notes. Hey, we're going to focus on this. Here's a quick worksheet I made. So it's okay to still adapt and bring in your teacher pieces that you probably have stashed somewhere. If you're like me, I still have a really great geometry journal project that I think if I was teaching geometry right now, I'd probably still have my kids go through it. It's about real life. Go offline, go find geometric shapes in the real world, right? I'm still going to do that. It might not be for practice, but it's going to let them make connections with their content. So we have those things stored as high qualified teachers, right? We have those things kind of in our back pocket. It's okay to bring those into your virtual classroom. It's okay to help make those connections with the kiddos that need it. Anything anybody else wants to add about student engagement? What are you guys thinking about this? Anything else to add? I did see some things like voice memos and video messages. Remember, when you're grading, there is video pieces built directly into Buzz. You can put all your thorough feedback. I think someone else loves feedback like I do in this group. You can still billow out all of that written feedback, right? But we can do something like a quick video like, hey, your project was really great. I'm really proud of you. It can be that quick of a message and change that student's SEL in a minute, right? That social emotional learning is instantly boosted. Stickers, feedbacks, you can make your own stickers. I throw an image sometimes in my feedback and act like it's a sticker. You can do those things because it's that instant support. I still love it when someone tells me I do a good job. I'm hoping at the end of this session, Tanya says, hey, that was a great session. That was fun, right? We like that instant knowing that we're appreciated and we're moving forward, and we can use that engagement. Badges, another great one. So what I'd like you to do now is we continue to kind of go through, I'm going to do a little bit more introduction. So you're going to have some time to think as I do that and I talk a little bit. Any of these pieces that we've talked about, if you would like to see them when I open up Buzz here in a moment, let me know. So if something like badges or discussion board is interest to you, go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll make sure we touch on it lightly. We are going to look at the clipboard. The clipboard allows us to do things like the badges and make that connection and make that relationship. So we are going to dive into that. But if any of these additional pieces you'd like to see, perfect. Discussion board, we will show you how to do that and incorporate that into your course. So let's talk about some of these other opening pieces. Interventions is another way to make that engagement relevant, right? So the student's struggling, now what? What do I do? How can I help that student? Or maybe that student just needs a little bit of a reminder every once in a while. That's where our clipboard can come into play. I need to get a little bit of an engagement level here from you guys again. I need you to give me a reaction. So you're looking for the smiley face on the top of your bar. I need you to let me know by using your reaction. Give me a thumbs up if you feel that you know how to create and use groups. I need you to give me the surprise face. That's the other end of the reaction spectrum. If you're like, not my jam, so I need to know it again. I think I see mostly thumbs up. Awesome. So nobody needs to know how to go through groups. I'm still going to ensure that our personalization and customization resources from the Help Center are shared with you in this follow-up. So Sheena, if you could mark those down just in case. Sometimes when I go in and make a new group, I need to know those steps, and they're right there for us in those resources. But now that we know how to make groups, I want to show you how to leverage the clipboard and to do that. So again, built into this presentation that we're going to give you as a PowerPoint, I did pull a bunch of those things already. You're going to see those with the question marks are typically those directly from the Agilix Buzz website. So it kind of goes a little bit more into the technical writing directions versus scenario that you'll find in the Help Center. So we'll see how do I create and manage groups, how do I configure group-specific activity settings. Those are directly from Agilix. But there's also the personalization options. That's our knowledge base article that talks about ways to kind of personalize the learning. We also, again, are going to share with you these additional resources from the clipboard. So has anybody seen, or let me rephrase that, has anybody used the clipboard in Buzz before? Give me a heart if you have. Yeah, making you do reactions again. Give me the heart. Nobody. Okay. So what'd you say?
One heart came up.
Jennifer's used that, and I bet you she's used it because it does have some of those great features to keep that engagement going. So you do have someone that's slightly familiar in your group, so that's great because whenever you have some questions, you can work collaboratively together to utilize that clipboard in ways that you utilize the clipboard. So let's begin by looking at that clipboard. We're going to come back to our presentation again when we get to the next piece of the puzzle. So we're moving on to agenda item number 2, and we're going to keep that engagement, that brainstorming we did, in the back of our mind when we get there. So can everybody see my screen? I'm going to log into the Pulse area. So I'm not sure if anybody is newer to this group. Andrea, do you know if anybody's newer? Tanya's like, nope, I know all these names.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, nobody's new.
Okay, well, if, just in case someone is newer to the group, if you would need to share this presentation, I do want to walk through logging in through Pulse. So we're going to hit sign in. I lied. There we go. We're going to log in, and we're going to go to the LMS and open that for us. So I'm going to start on my teacher landing page.
Maybe.
Oh, being slow today. So here in the teacher landing page, we're going to see, we can use our dashboard. I do like to pull this up every once in a while, just a quick refresher. Again, we're looking at some of those engagement pieces. So we can use these as quick references. You know, do I have critical students? What are my pacing? What's the engagement in my course? So I always encourage a quick look at this piece as you need. It'll also take me to my active or critical students. I'm going to go ahead and click on critical students and explain to you what that means. So I have 23 enrollments and 21 of them are critical. Okay, they're all our own fake students. So we don't go in there a whole lot. But why are they critical? Because they're probably behind pace, because again, we don't go in a lot. You shouldn't see a ton of students. If your enrollments are that many critical, we need to pause and talk with Andrea and become real creative with that engagement and relationship building real fast. So your students, you probably see less on the critical end of things, but it could also be performance as well. This puts an instant filter in my people area. I know that I've probably shown you people area before only because it's my favorite place to go in Buzz. I feel like it is the place that I can start any of the levels of things that I need to do with students: engagement, supplemental, support, encouragement, celebrating the good stuff. I always start kind of in the people area. Is everyone familiar with the people area? Give me a thumbs up if you are familiar. You've gone in there, you've looked around, you've played with filters. Couple thumbs up. Okay. So the people area you can get to in two places. The main one is here. That's my favorite. But if I'm in and working in a course, you can also go to an individual people area. This is the big guy. This is like that overarching. It'll allow me to select my display option. So I can kind of come in here and really filter what I'm seeing, adjust what I'm seeing. I can even group by course if I want to see them separate. I often teach students across a grade level, so I like to keep it not grouped by course so I can search for a student and see that student. Side note, to Jennifer, if you really want to start engaging your students, you can teach them about the self-assessment. It's a way for them to gauge how they are today. I'm going to send you an extra article. Sheena, I'm going to pull the Agilic self-assessment article. Just might be something fun that you can encourage your students to do. They go into their lesson, they see a heart, and they can change that weekly or daily, and you can see how they're feeling on a regular basis. So it is a great SEL piece built directly within Buzz. We just don't see a lot of students use it because they're just trying to get their stuff in and out. But if you have that fun engagement level, maybe that's something you can incorporate into a future classroom and start to build that relationship on a regular basis. So that is a fun piece. I have it turned off, but I'm going to turn it on just so that you can see it. So what does that look like? If I scroll over here, I don't think I have any students that have hearts, so we'll maybe make one later. So again, I can use this to search. The filter of critical just does the same thing that it did moments ago. So Aiden in his English Language Arts 9 semester 1 course is the only one not critical because he is getting close. He's done some activity and his performance as well. All of my other students in this current view are a little bit on the critical side of things. So knowing that Aiden is not, I may not select him, but I can search by any groups that I've made. So maybe I have my algebra. Whoops, that's not even a course I have viewing right now. Let's clear that. Let's try that again. So you can see your different groups that you've made and you can correspond that way. Let me make one small change. I apologize for that. I'm going to add a couple extra non-Michigan courses in here really quick. Not that one. Throw an extra ELA 2 in there. Just for usability of my people area. So let me go back there again. So again, I'm back in the people area. And I can see, again, through the filter option, I can filter through those different groups. If I come down here to my English Language Arts 2 course, not the 23-24 one. Lots going on here. So that is something to notice. When you hide your course, you're still going to see in People and Clipboard all of your groups, even if you don't have those courses visible, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I'm seeing all groups that have been made in my various courses. So you can filter that way. I can filter by name. So maybe I'm looking for Aiden across multiple courses. I can now see his information across courses. Again, I can filter for an individual course. So if I want to go back to my filters and group by course, I can. And now I see all my English Language Arts students together. I see all of my students grouped by those courses. So I'm actually going to click on Farah and Ellie. In my ELA 2 course, they're really not doing any work. I'm not sure what's going on. There's a couple other students too, but maybe they came into the course at the same time. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to engage with them right here in the clipboard. So how do I get them from a people area where I'm observing and monitoring them into the clipboard? Well, I'm going to select their names here. So you can select students in 2 places in Buzz. One is the people area. Does anybody happen to know what the other area of Buzz is that I can check next to a student's name? That's a tough one. So it's the grade book. So in your grade book, you'll also see these check marks. You can check their name. So when I check their name, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to intuitively click the plus sign. So it's going to add the selected students to the clipboard. And then I get a notification that I have 2 kids in the clipboard. So anywhere I see that check mark, oh, I'm going to add 1 more student. I can go ahead and hit add. It's smart enough to know that these students are still there, and Calvin was added as well. So I can add those students. They're now in my clipboard. So to get to the clipboard, you can click on the clipboard in your banner anytime you see it up in that toolbar, or just like people, it is found in my main menu navigation called Clipboard. So here's the really neat thing with the clipboard. It allows me to pull all, it's the only place that I can see all of my groups across all of my courses that I'm teaching. So again, this happens to be, these are the only 2 courses that I have visible that I can see all my groups. If I have all my courses visible as a teacher, I can see all of my groups. So this is one quick place to check and see where you have these students in a group. So I can add to that. Sheena, do you have a question?
Yeah, Casey, I just want to tell you 2 things. One, I did complete some self-assessments for Aiden, just so that you can show that experience for life skills and mathematics for A1. And then also, Kristen Fowler had a question in the chat regarding, is there a way to get our high school students we mentor onto this people page, or just courses we teach?
It's just courses you teach. That's a great question. So this is only available in the teacher view. The moderating view, you would go into each, as an observer, you would go into each individual student and you would look at their grades. It's going to give the most parallel view to people. So you would go to your observer role, click on your student, click on their grades. The grades at the main menu area, not the grades for an individual student. And it should show you a little bit of a similar piece, but it is per student. That's a great question, Kristen. So you can do that. As far as the clipboard is a teacher role specific piece. And we'll keep going down that way and kind of walking, but keep those questions coming. And Sheena, since you were so kind to do that, would you mind also logging in as S. Grace and making those courses available in her view that you added the self-assessment for? Please and thank you. Awesome. Okay. So again, based on this, I can see my group. So I have these 3 students here. Maybe I selected them because they all started enrollments on the same day. They're all behind. The neat thing that I can do is whatever I do is going to go to these 3 students, but they're going to feel like it's just to them. So they don't understand that other students are getting whatever interaction and engagement I'm doing. It is specific and goes out as individual. You're going to see here that I can also pull in quick lists and make quick lists. So if I want to come down here, again, I was just in this quick list, it's directly below the list of students that I have. And if I scroll to the bottom of the quick list, I can hit save. That means these 3 students can be put into their own quick list. Only available in the clipboard. It is not putting them in a group in their course. Really cool thing here is I can do this across courses. So quick lists can be used across courses. So maybe I have a student that's struggling in math and a different student struggling in social studies, and they're all in the same grade and they all just need a little bit of an encouragement message or something like that. I can put them in that quick group. Maybe I know my students from my relationship building pieces. I realize these students need a weekly encouragement. I'm not going to go find them individually. I'm going to put them in a quick list. I'm going to shoot them a message every Tuesday. We can do those types of things. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click in here, and we're just going to call them, the VLAC training group, or just VLAC training, right?
Are ready.
Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So now these students, I can pull them back up into this list at any time. And you can play with this and explore the clipboard a little bit more. I can remove all the students. Now I have nobody in my clipboard. So the neat thing is you don't have to pre-select your students. You can select them later and add them to your clipboard. You can remove them. Or again, hey, I have this group of students from VLAC. I'm going to make sure I talk to them on a regular basis. I'm going to go ahead and click that little arrow, and now they're back into my clipboard. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. You can do that in the chat or whichever one you need. Awesome. Okay. So now we have these options. So I'm going to skip this first part and jump right into badges. The reason I'm doing that is because Sheena gave us the idea. She said badges are a great way to engage with your student, right? That's a great way to relationship build too. I'm going to keep using that word in case you didn't know, because Andrea told me it was a magical word. So you're going to keep hearing it. We have these built-in badges. So you can issue the student a badge. They're going to see this in the For Me area. We've talked about For Me before. It's a great place to create a folder. So they're going to see this in the For Me area of their course. I also recommend a folder. And I'm going to show you that when we talk about discussion boards here in a moment. So I can click maybe character building. Maybe these students are not struggling. Maybe I'm going to say you showed great character. You got it spelled correctly. Character. This is why Sheena's better at the catching my errors. You showed great character by providing something. We're going to put some great stuff in here, right? So this is where that feedback, the SEL strategies, telling the student timely, hey, you did this. I saw this in your project that you submitted. Way to go. Or you in your discussion board that we created told us about this great thing you did for your neighbor at the holidays. I don't know. There's a variety of ways and reasons why we would give a student a badge. And then you can also choose an evidence file. So if it's associated to something, you can do that. We typically don't. You're just going to let them know what they did and why they did it. And you can go ahead and award it to them. Yep, that was successfully awarded to those students. And they now have a badge. I'm going to go ahead and remove these students, and I'm actually going to look for Aiden because I know his login pretty quickly. And I am going to go to Aiden's. Come on, where are we at here? I'm going to go find Aiden in a specific course. Give me one moment. In his English and Language Arts 9 semester 1 course, just to Aiden. Maybe it's an application badge. Great job on your class assessment. You are really sharing. Again, build in those engagement pieces. Make that connection. I too had a dog that whatever, I'm not sure what they wrote about in the English Language Arts course. And I can award that to him. So again, I can do it on an individual or a group basis or a quick list basis or random students that happen to have great assessments that day. I can go through. It's like that instant sticker. So badges are a great way to engage with your student. I'm going to go ahead and throw my struggling students up here as well, along with Aiden in a different course. So now I can add, again, I can layer those. Maybe my Late enrollment students should also be in there. So it's going to continue to pull up students. I can layer these students in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send these students a quick message. So if we recall, messages are sent now through the system. So it's all within that system. So I'm going to send these students a quick message, just remind them of some things that are going on. You're going to see send as a group message makes recipients and replies visible to everyone. The default is not to have that checked. So, but if you did want to send it as a group, maybe you were working in a group in your virtual classroom and you want to now bring those kids together and say, I want to acknowledge the great participation sharing you did, just remember these things. So you can use this message in a variety of ways to build that relationship, to make that engagement, to make that connection. So I can send this in a group as I want, but by default, it's going to go out to these individuals in their individual classes messaging, and they're going to just feel that it came to them. So for these students, we're going to talk about keeping on pace. Whoops. Today I was reviewing your pace in your courses. Please remember to complete a lesson a day. What are some other examples of messages or important things you may want to communicate to a group of students? Does anybody have any other examples? Me, I always go to pacing because it seems to be the one that students forget to do, which is, make progress every day. But are there any other scenarios where you may send a group of students a message? Retakes, awesome. That's a big one, Brittany. Please just go in order. Stop jumping around. You're making progress, but I can't figure out where. Right. So we might just have these quick messages or a reminder, hey, we're working towards this mastery assessment, and I see that you're not doing that. Submission tips, a great one. Please stop taking selfies of your assessment. Lay it flat on the table, right? We can repeat those things. Blank submissions, great. Each of these students are going to get that same message, and they're going to see those pieces. So I can go ahead and send that to the students. I can also attach. I think someone said something about folder directions. If you have an attachment, you can do that. You can use some of these light text editing as well. So I'm going to go ahead and send that. So we can really use that piece. We can also send them tasks. This can get a little bit more confusing. I feel like I'm going to give you the resources for tasks. Tasks are going to be pieces you want the student to complete. You're going to say how they're going to complete it, and you're going to give them the directions in here. So it's almost like building a custom material piece right into the course. It can adjust their pacing if you do several of these. So tasks, you're going to build that out. Please read these 4 things and tell me you've done them. Activities is then going to push you into a place where you're going to give them something a little bit more concrete. So again, activities and tasks can be very similar, but here I can search my course and bring content in. We can create a rich text piece directly into the course. We can link to a website, maybe a Google Drive doc, maybe we are sharing essential content PDFs, a YouTube video, an upload assessment, and I'm reinforcing that. So I feel like this is the next level to feedback. If you have been familiar, I actually did my undergrad thesis in supplemental learning, and this is what it always brings me, that parallel. That student struggling, and I really need to enforce them to kind of go back in and kind of see some of those pieces, review some of the content. So maybe I'm going to assign that to them. So I'm going to go back into my course. I'm going to select my course. I clicked the wrong one. That was my fault. I'm going to go find my course. Here they are. I'm going to go back into the component of my course. I'm going to go into the module, the lesson, and I'm going to add the read it for this student along with the practice it. Because remember that practice it's a great engagement, has that interactive learning object. So here I'm going to have the student reread the content and complete this practice it again. I'm going to go ahead and select that and link that into my course. I don't want to make them gradable because I don't want to add something else to their to-do list. I'm not going to give it a due date because I'm in continuous courses. And you're going to see it's going to go into those destinations of the course. So I'm kind of reissuing content to the student, and I'm putting it into those locations. So big thing here is that these 3 courses have something called a course resources folder. Does anybody know why that course resources folder is selected for that one, but for Algebra 1 it's not? Anybody happen to know? You're not supposed to know. So that's good. Thought maybe somebody was like, hey, no. But you're going to see that the course resources is the very first folder in every course that we have. In my Algebra 1 course, I went into the syllabus and I did an add to course, and it created a folder. That folder contains nothing. It's just a folder called For Me. When I create something in the clipboard and issue it to the students in the activity area, in Algebra 1, it's going to default to the For Me folder, which means for that student, when I give them special things through the clipboard, it's always going to go directly in that folder. I don't have to remember. Because as a teacher, once I push this out, I have to remember where I pushed it, or the student has to remember to go to the For Me folder. I'm going to show you that. So hold tight to the words I'm saying for a moment. So I create a For Me folder. It makes it more efficient for me to find that for my students. So I'm going to go ahead and do next, and I'm going to assign. So we're going to look about that destination folder here in a minute. So I did see a comment come in. It says, just wondering, after seeing the library, is there a hub to filter and print all assessments for a course? We will go look at that here in a moment, Brittany, when we get into the syllabus. That's our next adventure before our break. But again, we are going to provide to you lots of resources in our PDF of our presentation today that takes you through the different components of the clipboard. We just wanted to take a moment to engage with you on those opportunities that you could have with your students for relationship building, for engaging of the student, supplemental support, quick messages, utilizing things that you already know, which are groups. Are there any other questions specific to the clipboard that I can address for you before we move on? Or do you have any comments you want to add about the clipboard? Go ahead and take a moment to throw those in the chat now.
I just wanted to clarify, Casey, something about the actual messages when they get sent. They're going to the inbox in the platform of Buzz. Is that correct? Like they're not notified anywhere else.
Correct, and I'll show you them. I'll switch to a student. Actually, you bring up a great point. While folks think about the clipboard, if there are more questions, I'm going to switch and show you the student view of everything we just did. So let me jump into an incognito window and show that to you. That's a great point. And I'm not sure, I couldn't see whose box lit up, so I'm not sure who said that, but thank you for calling that out. Let's see what that looks like. We're going to go as Mr. Aiden Ross. Poor kid, I think I pretend to be him every time I'm in a session. Okay, so a couple things we're going to notice here. We might have some activity stream pieces, so you're going to see his badge does show up here. So that's a really great thing. When the student gets that application badge, it is going to be available here in their activity stream. And that was found in his Michigan course. So I'm going to switch over to his Michigan ELA 9 Semester 1 course, and I'm going to go to the gradebook. So the things that we're issuing in the clipboard, some of them may go to the area in the gradebook. So again, that's where that For Me piece is going to be found. So I did want to show you things that I issued to the student in their course. It's going to be in the For Me area of the course. I'm going to also click to his activities and see I'm going to get another identification. He sees his application badge, so he'll see his badges up top. And we're also going to see here that in his course resources folder is where those 2 read its ended up, because it was just a default folder in the course and I didn't change it. You can place those For Me, those activities anywhere in the course, but I like that For Me area. So if I go back here, I'm going to go to an older Algebra 1 course. It's in here somewhere. I'm going to go to Activities, and you're going to see that For Me folder. It only populates For a student, if I've issued them something in the For Me, it just sits blank until that happens. It's the like magic behind Agilix and that design. So all I did as a teacher was create that folder. So you're going to see when the student has something just for them, that folder will populate. They can check in that folder. It allows them to know those pieces are there versus going to their grade book and having to find it in that For Me area. So again, this was one that didn't land in the same location because we didn't have that set up. Now, as far as messages go, again, I sent some messages to some students. I must not have sent one to Aiden, but it would come in their inbox here. Sorry, there we go, keeping on pace, there it is. So again, that student inbox is found right here in their inbox, and then they can see that message. So I did send the keep pacing here. The student can reply back to me, and we can correspond. That's where messages go. You'll see that student doesn't know that the other students, there was 2 other students in that. He cannot see or interact with that because it wasn't sent as a group message. You're also going to see in the course, Sheena, you said Mathematics 4? So
yep.
Here in a course, you're going to see that there's always a heart. It's always in the upper right-hand corner. That's that self-assessment we were talking about. Students can click on that and they can rate their different pieces here. So what's their level of understanding, interest in what they're learning, and effort. And this kind of stays throughout every piece within that course. So if I switch to a different course, and go to activities, it's going to be blank because it's specific to the course. So if a student just wants to rate their understanding, they can, and we would just see that piece. So that's just a fun piece that you can interact with or encourage your students. It's a great way to make those connections. And then you'll see as a teacher, let me minimize back to my teacher view. I'm going to come back here to my people area. I'm going to see that in that Music 1 course, I do have something in the understanding column. So you'll see understanding, interest, and effort. And we see that Aiden had an understanding level identified there. So you see it as 3 separate parts when you're in there as a teacher. And then I can also see the date that it was changed last. That change date for that is important because if they're always going to have the same thing, you're going to see that, you know, maybe it's been weeks since they've engaged with it last. Fun piece you can incorporate with your students, but not something that we see a ton of students do unless that teacher is encouraging those efforts to be put into play. Oh, that would be fun with your weekly interactions, Andrea, to kind of engage and have students kind of see that. It gives them something to work with. And it's in that moment, so you can see every day if it's continuously changing. So you'll see if you check in on the people area. All right, so I'm going to move on to my course here, and I'm going to go to the editor. So to answer a question that was a little bit further up, is there a way to see in the library a filter and print all assessments for a course? So to print all assessments for a course, it's not an option. That's not really, I've never been able, I don't know a way to do that. So if you find one, let me know. But if you go to the activity list in your editor, you can filter by your assessments, which are going to be your checkpoints and mastery assessments. And you can filter by your custom activities, which would be your assessment uploads. And you can identify where those are in the course. It's a quick preview and print. So it is one efficient way instead of undoing everything in your syllabus. So that could be an option for you. For printing some of those pieces. So again, I filtered by assessment and custom activity. You can also, in your syllabus, search for some key activity words. So if I wanted to see assessments, let's try the word assess it. I can search for some of those keywords. And of course, my favorite piece, which is our pacing guide. I encourage you to print those and you'll know where they're located and you can jump directly to them. So that's ways to find them. As far as printing goes. Keep in mind, for the online assessments, they are randomized, so every student's experience is going to be quite different. But as a teacher, if I know the student has completed or has started, or I want to start for them an online assessment, I can go to that assessment. So I'm just going to go ahead and navigate in my activities. I'm going to go to lesson 5. I know there's a checkpoint. And we do see in the upper right-hand corner, maybe not, right here, I'm sorry, lower left corner, we see a print option. I can choose the version of that student. So what this means is if Farah has not started this and I want to print Farah's version, I'm locking in her version at that time. If Aiden's already in the progress of completing this and I want to print his version, actually when I click on this, I'll see the version in action that he is doing. So if he's already answered a couple questions, I should see that there. If I go, again, I can select all students and print them all if I want, or I can print individuals, and then we're going to see that kind of come up, and we'll see the versions per student. It gets a little bit hairy because you're seeing each student's version in one, or I can print that student. So it is a print option for those online assessments. Not sure if that's exactly where you were heading. But that is an option for printing, and you would need to locate those. I prefer the pacing guide because I can just locate, go, because I like the 2 screens or a printed version. I like to handwrite. Now I don't remember who answered that question. It might have been Brittany. So if that doesn't answer your question, please feel free to reword it in the chat. We can come back and visit it. So back to our editor. So someone asked about a couple pieces here. So again, I like to, if I'm going to use the clipboard, if I'm not going to use the clipboard, I may not do this, but I'm going to click Add Activity. I'm going to go to Folder, and I'm just going to create that For Me folder. I'm going to hit Save. I'm going to take that folder and drag it right above Course Resources. And it sounds like someone just joined. If you wouldn't mind placing yourself on mute, I'd really appreciate it so there's no feedback in the recording. So I'm going to drag that up here, that For Me folder, and I'm going to place it directly above, and it doesn't want to, so there it is. And that's only going to populate if I throw something in through the clipboard. So it's unique to each student. I don't put anything else in there unless I want to and have it permanently there for students. I also put it here because if I have a continuous class, it's going to go top to the to-do list if I did need to put it for grading or additional pieces. So it does calculate kind of back at the top. So we do have that For Me folder. I think we also address the For Me folder in one of the resources associated to the clipboard, one of our Lincoln Learning versions. But let's say I want to add discussion boards. I'm just going to click another folder here, and I'm going to call this one Discussion Boards. Whoops, you have to spell things correctly. And I'm going to hit Save. Again, I can place this anywhere I want in my course. Maybe I want that above or below the course resources. And I can create discussion boards there. I've also seen teachers add to the end of a module, just a discussion board chat, so they have one per module. I've seen teachers add it within specific lessons, maybe at the mastery level. They'll add a discussion board later, and that discussion board is used for reflecting on the unit. So where you place it is going to be up to you. Just know that there's a couple things with the discussion boards, and we'll add some of those links for Agilix. But when I create discussion boards, I can do them for a grade. I can do them as a place where students can just ask questions. So it's really the intent that you plan on using them. I like to use them as an open forum and not for a grade. That's why I don't put them within my content. If I'm going to do it for a grade or have an expectation of the student, then I'll place it in my content. Just remember, discussion boards are just like any other component with my continuous course. The more pieces I add throughout the course during the school year is going to change pacing a little bit. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're placing it. So here I'm going to come to my discussion board folder and I'm going to hit Add. And we're going to see we have options on the right-hand side. I'm going to hit Discussion. A similar option are also those journals and those blogs. You can check those out on the Agilix site as well, or we can send you those resources. But for discussions, I'm just going to go ahead and add a discussion board. And this is going to be Thankful Thoughts. I can add to my content here, give an explanation. What is one thing in the content you think that you should probably address from the start? So this is kind of just that item. It's the directions, it's the important pieces. What's something I may want to put in this area? So when we have students working and interacting with each other, so we are some settings we can put on here. Maybe we don't encourage them to do some things. We'll see the discussion board here in a moment. But I like to set my expectations here. We are not going to share our location. We're not going to share personal information. We're going to be respectful. We're going to, so that layer of what we would say are the norms and the expectations, those would go here in this content piece if you would like. So that's one thing that we want to address. We can add those even in the activity instructions, but we do want to praise those expectations and norms. I've often seen with groups of teachers, they'll set them together. So you might come up with a PDF everybody uses or a set of steps everybody uses, so you're creating them as a group. But I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So I've created my first discussion forum. You can always edit and make those adaptations as you need. You can see your settings here, and we could have looked at that from the beginning, but you're going to see allow users to edit own posts, allow instructors to delete posts. That's a great one. Allow students to create new threads. You can set through those different pieces as you see fit. So maybe you make a discussion just for a group of students as well. Maybe you try it out with some students that you know are going to engage a certain way. You do have options here. So those are found in your settings. Now, as a teacher, I'm going to come to my activity area. I'm going to check out my discussion board here. And this is going to be where those threads happen. So again, your prompt would go here, your expectations would go here. So I do apologize, I didn't call that as well. So here in this discussion board, add a thread for each thing you are thankful for. And then I would list my expectations. Again, the add activity instructions, you could also list your expectations there if you wanted the prompt to be separate. I'll show you what that looks like as well. There's my prompt. Whoops, undo, Control Z, Control Z. Oh, okay, so I can do that. So again, you can edit that once you thread it. So here are my instructions with my expectations and norms up top, my discussion, setting the stage for my discussion. So as a teacher, I can add the thread. So I am thankful for my students. I'm going to post it. So thankfully for us, we have an incognito student. Got to switch to the correct class. I think it was 2. Hold on. I can show more. I can add my thread as a student, and I can say I am thankful for my teacher. Post. So now you have the discussions going back and forth. Students can also reply. I love you too, Mrs. Grace, Mrs. Grace. Okay, sorry, getting real into this here. So you can see how the discussion board can kind of be completed. But again, as a teacher, if I see something inappropriate, I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm going to take the steps I need for anything that's inappropriate. But you do have the power to delete if you need to as well. So that engagement is going to start happening, and you can really have fun and build these out. You can add images to your content intro. You can do a lot of fun things. This is just meant to kind of give you an idea or an option for that engagement, for that relationship building with your students. Any questions? Okay. Can you give me a quick reaction? Let me know, is this something that you're going to use? So again, I would say a thumbs up if you're going to use it, or a heart, or clap. If you're not, maybe just laugh at me and be like, you just wasted your time. So let me know. Give me that reaction. Or you think you're going to use it? I saw 1, 2 reactions. Who else is going to let me know? Are you going to use these? And that could be for anything. We have our clipboard. We have, oh, good. I love that Shannon's willing to try it. And we have our discussion boards. I encourage you as a team, and I know Andrea does a great job at this, talking about those expectations, have that common thing. Another great thing with discussion boards, add it to your agenda, add it to your announcements, add it to your landing page. If you're going to start using discussions, let them know when it's posted, set those expectations more than one time, and continue to do that. Andrea, question?
I was just going to say, even if you wanted to give it a shot, you could have like a small goal for yourself of doing it like quarterly to begin, like just do 1 discussion post per quarter for the year and see how it goes with your students.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. This is a long session, and I'm already 5 minutes over what I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and have everyone take a 5-minute break. When we return, we're going to talk about the modifications and accommodations that we're working with students, and we're going to end our session talking a little bit about artificial intelligence. So go ahead and take those couple minutes. You can put yourself on mute and turn your camera off, and we're going to get started again here at 11:11 Eastern Standard Time. All right, hopefully everyone is coming back on. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again, and we're gonna get ready to get started here in a moment. So if you are like me and you're at home and you're getting that quick cup of coffee, hopefully you can still hear me. We're gonna get ready to get started. Again, if you would love for you to turn your cameras back on and let me know you are back at your desk. The macro and micro cues are very helpful for me while we're walking through. If it's one of those days, I heard some people on, I think, Mucinex and some other stuff that we're thankful for. If you are not camera ready, if you could just give me a thumbs up, either in the chat or a reaction, and let me know you are back. It'll let me know I have most of my audience with me. All right, we got a heart, we got some thumbs up. I think we're gonna go, oh, yeah, Shannon, raise the roof. Let's go ahead and get started. So I know that the beginning portion of this, and I wanna acknowledge, was very teacher heavy. I wanna take a moment and kind of talk about our accommodations and modifications. We're gonna begin in two sections. We're gonna look at those done by Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers. So our support staff that is here, those mentors, those folks that are helping our students make their way through. They're cheerleading and championing them every day, but you're not quite teaching all those courses because our wonderful Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers do support our older students here in VLAC. I do want to kind of acknowledge that this first half is going to focus a little bit on them. For those of you that are teachers and not in that role, I hope this helps inspire you on some things that we can work on with accommodations and modifications. So let me get that going here for us. So when we look at our VLACs using Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers, we worked with Valerie Kaufman. So if you do ever have that interaction with her, Valerie is amazing. She is a complete joy. She helped us realize some of the pieces that our teachers do on a regular basis. And she actually pulled these a little bit more specific to VLAC, and I want to speak to some of those now. So in the scribe by parent or mentor, parents and students can take advantage of this in quite a few ways. So this is one that we do sometimes acknowledge and call out, and it is not something that our teachers actually can apply for you. But we can take advantage of things like text help to support that. So if I'm a student, and I'm going to bounce a little bit back and forth, so bear with me. Oh, that's not it. If I am, nope, that's not it either. We want to be in as a student. Where'd it go? Okay. So I'm here as a student. If I'm in a learning object, just a reminder, there is text help that can help you throughout our courses. We're going to see that up here. You can have things read aloud. They can have things, even the picture dictionary is one of my favorite things for our young kiddos, helps them kind of learn those words and support that. So if scribe is something that we do need, and maybe that parent isn't available at the time, maybe it's an older student, they can leverage text help. You'll also see in our online assessments that text help is an option as well. And in our upload assessments, it's typically built in on that piece. So you'll see the speech to text here. So if the student continues to take their assessment, they can use that speech to text, which will pop open that text help feature. So I did want to call that out as something that we can use to support our students when we're working with those accommodations and modifications. The next one is directions clarified. So our teachers can offer that clarification to directions by any time necessary. The teachers will tell the students to reach out in those cases if they need something clarified. Honestly, any student can reach out to our teachers if they need something clarified. That's what our staff is here for. That's what they're here to support. Let's say you're the teacher and even helping the students, you need additional support. That's what Tanya's here for. So again, even when you're using when you're teaching, if you need that, hey, I think I clarified these directions correctly, but I'm still getting questions back from the student. Is there someone here to help? That's what Tanya is there to help support. We can help facilitate that with our own teachers and our curriculum staff as well. So these pieces can go beyond that. Resets. Our teachers do apply resets based on what those accommodation or modification pages look like, what those IEPs, 504s, etc. And those resets may vary. It may be at a certain percentage. It may be the student is required to do one reset. But resets is an option for our when using our teachers. One thing I want to call out is if a student does not have that right accommodation in place, they don't have the identified need, a student will not be able to have something just reset because they want it reset. It has to fall within that identified expectation or need for that student. The excusal of teacher-graded project-based assessments by both 25 and 50%. So I'm going to take us back to last September. We actually had a really great session, and here's the recording. It's built directly within, so when we share that PDF, you can get right to that recording. It was a custom session that we walked through as a team. You're going to see, I tried to find that actual PowerPoint, for some reason could not, but we talked about using our pacing guide and leveraging that to make some decisions. So if you remember that session, we kind of talked about, in case VLAC teachers wanted to do that, our teachers will look at the pacing guide and the reduction of 25% of assessments. They determine those by the assessments for consistency, amount of effort, how might it impact general content understanding, the amount that it is in the course. So there's a whole session we're going to share that was recorded from last year. But our teachers use those same approaches. That's how we built that session for you. It's really based on the course and the teacher's discretion. So for an example, the amount of work. If the assessment's going to be a lot of work in comparison to something else, that may be the item that they reduce as part of that 25 or 50%. And we went through that last year. So just kind of want to do a quick reminder on that one in case our teachers are looking through that. Here's some example notes we did in that session as we went through. Okay, this assessment, we found it in the pacing guide. It's an upload. It's spelling. It's going to, it's the first 10 items. It's worth 15 points in the course. So reminder to find what something is in a course. We are going to go to our syllabus of a course. So we'll just go to syllabus of the course. We go to the weights. We expand our include, and it's going to tell me how many points and percentage of that course that's worth. So we can kind of see that there and help make those determinations. Any questions on these first four? Sheena, I have not been watching the chat.
No questions in the chat, Casey.
Perfect. So as we look through these other ones, a student will receive a minimal grade of 50% on a mastery assessment. When talking with Val, this one is actually very unique and applies to a certain student. So basically, if the kiddo gets below 50%, teacher goes in and increases it to a 50%. That's how it was written in. So there are some of those very specific accommodations that can be written to the student needs, and our teachers are there to help with our student support services. Val Kaufman at the helm of that. Study guides, we even talked about this, I think, in that same realm when we were talking about some of that customization. For our study guides, teachers share a PDF file with the students when we have that accommodation email explaining that accommodation. So students are encouraged to complete them and send them back to the teacher for feedback, but that is an option with our teachers, those study guides. We've heard client feedback about study guides going beyond those using our teachers, and I know that our staff is continuing to unpack that from an academic standpoint as well on is that an opportunity or an option for future classes for those taught by client teachers. But as of right now, this is specific to our instructional services staff having those study guides that they made. But you as a teacher can also make a study guide if you would want to, maybe making some guided notes. I'm a huge fan of those. We started even incorporating those into some of our professional learning sessions that we are unpacking and working on now. And then things like reduction in length of written responses using lists, graphics organizers, paragraphs. So for our uploads, our essays, our teachers are flexible in that. For most students in general, they tend to be flexible. If it says marker and they only have a color pencil, completely understandable. But in other cases, we want to make sure that that's identified so that if something's supposed to be an essay response, but the student needs to write theirs in a list form, having that accommodation identified and our teachers being aware they're there to support those. And then we go into my favorite one, which I think I showed you guys when we did the groups sessions prior to, the reduction of questions on a mastery assessment by 25 or 50%. There's a couple ways that we can attack that. Our teachers will reduce them from 40 questions to 20 questions in the example of 50%. We also have some teachers that go a step further as client teachers, and they'll do those a little bit differently. So those are some of the ones that we see as a regular basis. Those are also some that you may want to consider when you're working with your students as well, especially looking at things with that the students. So things like direction clarification at our younger kiddo level might be something that you're already doing naturally, but it's not part of an accommodation. Does anybody have any questions on those pieces? Yes, Christy, question?
Yeah, I was wondering the part about the guided notes. Did you say that the guided notes that the teachers for some of the courses would have to make the guided notes, or were I was listening, but I couldn't tell if you were saying that they're available or how it's
study guides are an accommodation that our Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers do have for their students. So if your students are working with our Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers, study guides is an accommodation we can provide. So our teachers can provide that. As far as a client teacher, so you're a teacher that is teaching and you have this come across, that is not something that we have as a package portion of our curriculum. We did hear client feedback on those as options, and I do know that our academic affairs team and instructional services team are talking about those and working collaboratively. We heard that as client feedback. But at this point in time, if a client teacher needed or wanted to provide that type of thing to their students, they would need to create that on their end. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Okay. And then we worked to figure out what are the most common ones for our VLAC teachers you see right now. And we do see that 25 or 50% reduction of assessments, or of assignments, as well as the removal of 1 or 2 answers for multiple choice questions. So I want to walk through these lightly with you. And again, we started doing that whenever we were looking at this Excel. So just a recap, as a teacher, to kind of reduce the whole percentage of 25 to 50%, we're going to kind of attack this with a 3-step piece here. 1, we're going to download our pacing guide. And we're going to go through and we're going to make those notes. So we want to add a note column when we download our pacing guide. Give me a thumbs up if you know how to download your pacing guide. Give me a clap hands if you already have it downloaded. So we have a couple folks that know how and 1 person that already has it downloaded. Awesome. So again, we're going to go through our syllabus. We're going to go through the activities, locate the course resources, locate the pacing guide, download an Excel version or a PDF version, whichever is the option for you. If you do not have an Excel, yeah, Jennifer, exactly what I was going to say. If you don't have an Excel version, I recommend printing it out and handwriting it. I'm a huge fan of that. Or using some of the free Adobe, you can also take the notes in there. But ultimately, looking at the pacing guide is going to be the easiest way for us to see those assessments and note down that important information. We're going to note down, what is it? Is it an upload? Is it an online assessment, right? We're going to note down maybe just the impact of that course. Is it going to require the student to do a lot of work? What's that level of work? And then look at that point. I'm going to go ahead and do my split screen here, and I'm going to grab my syllabus. So to get, actually, I'll make this, I don't think you guys need to hear sound. Hold on. Teams is taking over. Okay. So again, in our course, I went to my syllabus. I went to weights. I went to include. And this too will tell me where my assessments are. So you can actually see it in 2 places. I can see where all those assessments are. So you can approach that by making those notes, identifying those points, the percentage and the point, and I get that right from here. You may also just decide everything over a certain percentage, I'm going to go ahead and hide. So the first really huge step is understanding what is in the course, And then the second step is noting those points and impact. Anybody want to guess what the third step is? The final step? Putting those students in a group and adjusting the visibility for that group. So everybody knows how to create a group, but again, we're going to go to our group settings. We are going, nope, I lied to you. We are going to go to our course settings. Nope. Wow, it's like a Monday and it's a Tuesday. One more time. We're going to go to tools. We're going to go to manage groupings. Syllabus, tools, manage groupings. We're going to add our group. And I'm just going to go ahead and just do this one quickly. Generate that group. I am going to customize so it doesn't say Mod 1, and I want 25% of assessment. I'm going to do OK. I'm going to put my students in it. I'm making this specific because in certain areas of Buzz, you do not see the you don't see the group name. You only see the subgroup name. So I always make my subgroup names specific. Just a little tip. I'm going to hit save. Now this time I'm going to go to my group settings. And again, based on what I did in my outline, I'm going to go to those assessments and decide which ones I need to slash that I through and hide. It's going to be the easiest way to take it away is just hide that assessment. Another pro tip here. If you're going to go ahead and hide that, again, handwrite in an Excel, whatever the case may be, I'm probably going to note which assessment I hid in the course. So I'm going to come over here and say, you know, whatever the group name is, and I may come in here and note that in my syllabus so I know which ones I'm doing. Why? Because if I have to then do one at 40% or 35%, I have that acknowledgement of what I did for 25% or 50%. So it just may save you in the long run to note if it's something that you're often hiding. Any question on applying that type of modification from your standpoint? Andrea, did that cover what you needed it to cover? I know that these modifications and accommodations were important for us today. Just want to make sure I'm hitting the nail on the head here.
I think so, yeah.
Awesome.
Christy,
So
do you have anything to add to it? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
It would really be the teachers, if the teachers feel like they need any more clarification, or if they feel comfortable with that. If any of you guys have any questions about anything or wanting to know more, now is the time.
Yeah, that's what Christy said.
Well, we have the actual experts here.
Well, as always, sometimes when we're in trainings or professional developments, professional learnings, regardless of the title that you give it, sometimes that question doesn't come up until we're actively working or we get, maybe you don't have those right now, right? I don't have that accommodation. Oh, now I do, now what? You can return back to this training. I also have that other training linked in the PD that we're going to provide. And then Tanya's your source. So if you get stuck, she'll help communicate it back to us. And if we get stuck, we have an entire instructional services staff that I showed you does those accommodations on the regular. So we can also consult with them on if we feel like something's not functioning the same way. Shannon, you had your hand raised?
Yeah. So curious, just because I know, like, for example, little background is I do 5th grade, and then I've been taking on high schoolers. And so I have in my 5th grade a couple students who needed like reductions, and Andrea and I went through and we did all that lovely goodness, so we don't have to worry about that. But when it comes to the high schoolers, that's on the content teacher's end, right? Like if they need that accommodation.
Yep, it's on our content teachers. We just have to make sure that our staff, specifically the student support services staff, as I said, Val Kaufman, she's your girl. She needs to have that accommodation page or modification page, depending on how things are written, so that she can inform and support our teachers on making those appropriate pieces. In the quick background, they're doing the similar things. They're putting the student in the appropriate group that already has those settings. So you just have to communicate to that staff. And if you run into any issues, I know that Andrea can also be that point of contact for you internally to help you get to the right folks on this side. So, Brittany, you had your hand raised as well?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So I'm finding that like when I'm going in to do progress monitoring, it depends on the elective. Like I know phys ed is one of them, but like I'm having a hard time when I look at like say I go to a student and then in the corner like I click the columns next to the where it says observer app. And then I click on like the grading feature. Thank you for doing it with me so that it's easier. So if you click like just the grades so that it pulls up like the screen page of their report of their grades for each course, I'm finding that like for certain electives, if you look at like the gradable progress and the all activities, like for whatever reason, sometimes they're just very wonky. Like, and I'm only noticing it with electives. Like for example, like the phys ed course, I will notice like all activities will be like 89 and then the gradable progress will be like 0, which I know with phys ed, like that's because there's only one log, but I'm having kind of a brain fart with the other electives. Some of them like the same thing will happen, but their gradable progress will just be very, very off from their all activities. And then I'm wondering what your recommendation is like to go for progress monitoring for courses like that.
Yeah, so for courses like that, I'm still a fan of starting here as an observer because at least gives you the insight if they're making any progress. So to me, that's one of the most important things is to see if they're making any progress. The second part is from this view, I'm just going to pick a random course here. Maybe pick a better random course.
Like that was like up there, like that English one that you just said, like, did you notice how it says gradable 4 and then all activities 0? Is that because that student just went in and did a gradable thing and skipped through all the other stuff?
Yep. So I always look at those two pieces. When gradable is significantly higher, like not in the case of this course because the student did all the items in the course and just maybe hasn't submitted an assessment, or did all the assessments, I'm sorry, and 78%, they may have skipped like show and answer keys or something. So those should still ride fairly similar, but when we see something that's way off, so like this is a good example here, this mathematics, that's a lot of gradable items and very little content. Your content items should be vastly larger. So I'm just gonna come down here on the life skills course because I think it's where did it go? Fairly good example. So if I click on the course, I'm still gonna look at this view and I'm gonna click on the course to see those pieces. So now I have numbers attributing. So there are 318 resources overall in the course. The student has 3 of 27, which means 3 of this 9 are assessments, if that gives you an additional like viewpoint. And we can kind of see those gradable pieces here. You can also go to this guy, which is activity. I want to see what's going on. This is going to actually lead me to my next point, which is a little bit about some of that artificial intelligence. Nothing new. We're working with high schoolers. There is AI out there that can probably come in here and make mouse clicks if they're smart enough and do work on its own. So things you're going to want to keep in mind is duration and timestamp. So if I have a student that's working at 3 a.m., why are they working at 3 a.m.? If most of their timestamps are about the same, why are they spending that same time? So I'm just going to kind of throw those things out there. But look at that duration. If the student's spending like a good amount of time in those read-its and walking through the content, okay, they're making some progress. But we can see here that student just kept clicking into those items. My student here in time management is going through the course in a very strange manner. So we want to look for those patterns. What are they clicking on? How often are they clicking? What are they doing in those right orders? So that kind of takes that progress monitoring to the next level, I feel like. So whenever things are weird, I still will start in the grade piece just to kind of get that general understanding. Because there's some that you're just going to say, okay, I don't need to dive into those details. But these two classes, they're weird. I'm going to select on the grades. I'm going to see what that general information looks like, look at these bars, and I'm instantly going to activity.
Yeah, like I said, the physical education one is just crazy because I'm thinking hypothetically, I could have a student that almost all year I'm putting as like, okay, they're slacking, but then at the end of the year, they're just going to hit that 100% when they turn in that one assessment. You know what I mean?
And
So
Brittany,
I would
just
do
to
that
jump in
more on,
here,
yep, go
oh,
ahead.
is it okay if I jump in? We decided for phys ed, since it is so different, to focus on the all activities when we're progress monitoring, because that's really the only thing that's going to be changing in that course until the very end of the semester, if that makes sense.
Should we do that with, should we just consider that the case for any elective that has very, very few gradable things then?
We can take a look at them. Do you mind, like, after this showing me a few examples so I can look and see?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Great. Great question. And Shannon, you have another question?
Yeah, just piggybacking off the electives part. When it comes to because I know, like, for example, and I'm just using my fifth grader, so that's where I can really see my electives. If the the assessments and that are due throughout the whole year, like it's a full year, if we're doing the monitoring, like progress and stuff, does it change? Because, for example, the core courses go to less than 90 for like the first semester, but then the electives are all different where it's a full year. So would that data be off if we were looking at the gradable progress, if we're recording it to our pacing guide? Sorry, I'm trying to read that question right.
No, you make complete sense. So one thing I want to show you is I'm actually going to go to Lincoln Learning Solutions. So keep in mind, I'm going to jump to our course catalog here. It is important, yep, go ahead. I'm going to go directly to, so we'll go to electives and we'll go to Art 1. So when I view the details with Art 1, you're going to see it's a 0.25 credits. That means that particular course is going to have 45 lessons because it's a quarter credit. If I were to look into something that is, let's say, art appreciation, it's 1 credit, so it's going to have 2 parts. So it's 2 semesters. That's going to be 180 lessons, split between, so 90 per semester because it's a semester-based course. If we go to something like, I think Exploring Jazz, but I could be wrong. Yep, Exploring, good thing I have some of this memorized. Exploring Jazz, it's a half credit course, which is a semester, which is going to be 90 lessons. So I sometimes just kind of make sure I'm aware of what the credit association is, because that's going to give me number of lessons. Then it's based on enrollment. So for this half semester course, if I enroll the student in Exploring Jazz for an entire year, that's 90 lessons over a 180-day cycle, approximately, give or take. So that student's going to maybe complete and assess it every other day. In the case of a quarter credit course, so if we go back up to that Art 1, if that enrollment is for a full year, then that student's going to complete the pacing would be every 4 days, right? So maybe once a week, they would complete the art course. So to me, it really looks based on credit, because credit equals number of lessons for if you're kind of doing a little cheat sheet, right? Quarter credit, 45, half credit, 90. Something that's a full year course is going to be 2 semesters, each being 90. So then what is the enrollment on that? And so obviously the student's going to need to make a little bit of progression in that course every week, but it's going to be based on that enrollment. So Andrea put some great stuff in the chat.
Just chatting away. So Shannon, we can talk about this too at our upcoming PD on 1210, but likely for those full year courses, it would be like, for example, if a student was expected to be around 40%, we could cut that in half because they have twice as long to complete that course.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I know when we're doing our progress monitoring, it's more of like, okay, can we actually see they're actually at least trying to work each week? Yes. I just wanted to make sure that it's not if someone was looking at the data going, okay, we're seeing like this student in their core course is moving awesome, and then in their electives they're not doing anything. I just wanted to make sure monitoring that like correctly.
And you can also encourage, so if you don't see progress, so I know some students, my kids are famous for this too, where they're going to go in and they're going to focus on the things they like first, and then they have to play catch up. So there might be like one subject they're avoiding. I do it at work sometimes. You know, there's always that one thing that you're like, I'll get to it. And that's one of those things where you need to encourage doubling up sometimes. So it looks like you haven't done anything in your elective classes now in 3 weeks, which means you're about 3 to 4 lessons behind. So for the next week, I need you to do a lesson in your art course every single day. And then after that, you can be rewarded to only have to do it one day. So those are some things that you can kind of talk about hopefully in that PD too. And Andrea, if you want to bounce off any ideas for your PD, happy to help you when it comes to pacing. I think between Tanya, myself, Sheena, and some other folks in the other room here on site, we've dealt with every pacing scenario somebody can probably throw our way. So if you want to bounce off a couple ideas, we're happy to assist with that. But let's keep moving. If you have more questions, please put them in the chat. We'll pause a little bit at the end. I want to make sure we get into the AI piece. So we have one more piece with our accommodations and modifications. There is one that comes up. It is specific to a user. So this is one of the only ones that is not unique for the course. It's for the user. And if we need to apply this to your students, one, if you're using our teaching services, you can request this of them as well. And this is to limit distractors. If you need this applied to one of your students, there are folks on your staff that have these abilities already applied. We worked on it a couple weeks ago, and they're able to do that. So again, it has to be, you want that in your accommodation or modification situation. You cannot narrow this down in any way by the course. It is all or nothing for the user. So those that have that client admin ability with this extra feature, you go into your admin, we find our user. I'm gonna find Miss Ellie. And as I scroll past, all I did was went over here, users, found her. In her user profile, as I scroll down, I have these additional accommodation pieces, and I can narrow it down to always be 3 distractors, and I can hit, it's gonna be applied directly for her. So that's some things that you can add. There are a couple other accommodation ones here, but this one we see is most often. Again, it's based on user, not based on course. So it means in math classes is the only place she needs it. She's also getting in English language arts, science, social studies. Every enrollment would have this scenario. So just wanted to point that one out. Let's go ahead and let's go back to, I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. And Sheena, can you tell me, are you seeing that? Our AI?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, thank you. So let's talk about then that next piece. So we started with engagement, right? We talked about our relationship building. The great part about relationship building is I get to know my students, right? So as a teacher, all the time, we are working on our academic honor code pieces. So if you use our Lincoln Learning Solutions teachers, our secondary students, I'm going to show you some resources here at the very end for our help center that I want you to pay special attention to. But our teachers take it very seriously when it comes to academic honesty. Complete your own work, let's not be insubordinate, let's not plagiarize, and now we have to also defend the AI scenarios, right? So they're a real thing, they're out there. So I'm going to take you down a little bit of a fun fact that we found today. You're on LinkedIn, so excuse my LinkedIn account. I'm going to quickly zoom into this video. But it came up today. There's a big uproar on LinkedIn about AI. Coca-Cola just created a commercial. Did you guys know this? Completely AI. Let's watch it quickly. I'm not even going to put the sound on. I just want you to watch it. That is completely AI generated. It's a
That
remake
is
of
incredible.
It's a 1985 or I want to say in the 80s. It is a commercial that they remade using AI. And it's a little bit clearer in probably here. If I zoom in, maybe I'll zoom in versus you guys seeing my whole entire, you guys don't need to see any of that. I apologize, this is my recording now. I have no other way to do it. But you can see that. I could see while we were watching, we were looking at Santa's hand. To me, that does not look like a hand. It looks a little bit AI, right? So when we watch these AI things, right, even some videos, I'm not gonna lie, I have seen some of those commercials on different, we'll say reels for lack of a better term, depending on what, social media you're on, and you're like, is that really Kelly Clarkson? Is that really her talking? And then you watch and you're like, that's not even syncing up completely with her lips, right? AI is so fascinating and a little bit intimidating, right? A little bit scary. You're kind of like, ooh, okay. So I think we can pick apart some of those pieces when we're talking about AI and student submission. So again, I do apologize. You guys got to see my LinkedIn a little bit. That was not the intent, but I had no other way to show it. What our teachers have done, they have done a great job of trying to identify that as a team. It's a team effort. At the end of the day, I'm going to stress that more than anything. It's a team effort. If you're not sure, you have a colleague that's working and is able to help you grade. Maybe sometimes it's bouncing ideas. Maybe it's talking through these things as a team. But our team has created, and it's in our help center, I'm going to show you how to get there, is identifying artificial intelligence. This is a document. It's a PDF. This is actually page 2 of that PDF. And we're going to walk through that. So let's open that a little bit bigger here for us on the screen. I have very old eyes, so I like to zoom in. But you're going to see it does cover our overview of academic honor code. So this is very unique to how our teachers handle academic honesty. It talks about our referrals, our quick facts. But then it's this piece. This piece to me is what really drives it home on how we're approaching artificial intelligence. So students are encouraged to use it. It can be an amazing thing, right? But you have to have applicable and appropriate usage of that piece. So we do have a nice a second resource that talks about that usage and how to apply it, also found in our help center. So some do's and don'ts, which we will share with you. It's a PDF, so you can hang it up, put it behind you when you're teaching, so your students can see it. You can make a poster if you want. But it is a Lincoln Learning flyer that you are welcome to utilize and have. But beyond that, we as teachers have to also address this, right? We also have to look at how we're evaluating it. And I'm so excited that our teaching staff shared this with us. They are the experts. They work in virtual all the time. They work in a collaboration. They've done lots of research around these things. And you're going to see that they found some things that are pretty aware. So just like that video we saw with the weird Coca-Cola can, and I don't have rights to that commercial. I'm just showing it as an example. So sorry if I just did a copyright thing. But the submission we're going to see is maybe much longer, more thorough than what we're used to with that student, right? Because we've built that relationship. We've engaged with them. We see how they answer our discussion boards, our interaction in live classes, and wow, the student really liked this assessment. And sometimes that is the case, but we know when it's significantly longer. There's also maybe things in here that we haven't covered yet in the class are part of that. We're going to see that the details are advanced language skills. It's not the student's voice. So similar to whenever they plagiarize, right? We're going to see, we know our student's voice. We're going to see the responses include generic examples. We're going to see maybe the extra piece of furthermore and sequentially, words that they don't typically use. Sheena pointed out in the notes that the last bullet, or do you mean the last sub-bullet, Sheena? Can you explain?
Yeah, the last open bullet in that list. Sorry.
Yes, that was a little bit beyond me from a grammatical standpoint, but I'm sure our English teachers are loving that example. Sheena, do you want to explain it a little bit more? You're more than welcome.
Oh no, to be quite honest with everybody in this group, this is really the first time that I've been able to sit down and take in all of the information that our teacher facilitators supplied us with. So reading this right along with you and having my first look, I just found that one to be particularly interesting. The other ones, I feel like, as you know your students, they're a little bit obvious, but that one really I find quite interesting.
How's I found the cliches one interesting too? Like, yeah. Well, tongue in cheek for my kiddos. So you do have that. They also pointed out and identified some technology, and again, we are not, just like the Coca-Cola, we are not endorsed by or endorsing anything specific. There are things for you to research. And again, that LinkedIn piece is something that I just found really cool. It was timely that came out today about how AI is going to continue to evolve. So there is GPT-0, 0GPT, and the list probably goes on, and you can search those. So you as a team may find a resource to help identify that as a team, and maybe there's something that you go to or as an organization you have. But you're also going to see that our teachers are looking for, is it more than one, right? So if I have a student that really just went thorough and like just did great on this assessment, seems a little out of character, maybe they just really found a topic they liked, right? But then I realized they did that, and they are using a lot of bulleted lists, and there's a lot of, furthermore, therefore, sequentially, and I realized, okay, now I'm seeing 3 common things for AI. Maybe I need to move to that identification and conversation with that family or application of the academic honor code. If you're using our teachers, they will absolutely move forward with our academic honor code infractions and the processes for that. I see movement in the chat, but with multiple things up at one time. Sheena, can you let me know what's going on, or is there anything worth sharing with the group?
There was just a question regarding grading, if there was anything in the grading that identifies AI. To my knowledge, and Casey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know of any LMS at this point in time that uses AI or uses anything to identify AI.
No, I do know that Agilix Buzz is looking at the Busy Bee, something. It's an artificial intelligence that's part of Agilix Buzz, but I think it's more artificial intelligent assistant, like a chat GPT or a co-pilot from that perspective to help teachers and students in a different way, but not to identify. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep. Brittany did comment that Imagine does. So
yeah, Imagine has like a plagiarism one. It's like a bar at the bottom when you're grading that says like percent of AI detected and then percent of plagiarism detected.
Very interesting.
And it might be... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to piggyback off what Brittany said. Now that you are talking about that, Brittany, and kind of that functionality, I do believe that Canvases also, they have been sneak peeking some functionality in theirs over the past year, but I don't know if that's available to all users. So
it may also be that they are incorporating one of those tools that are free. In addition to, so similar to like how we apply text help, maybe they've partnered with, but some of those GPT-0 and those resources in the second to last full bullet might be an option. And as far as plagiarism, we still haven't had anything built in directly, because I think it's really unique to what the client uses, because some clients also come in with some of those plagiarism pieces already purchased, so it may not be as part of it. So there are options out there that you can kind of go in and see and allow for that. So yeah, and some LMSs do add that, a partner app. I'm not aware of a partner app with Agilix Buzz at this point in time. So we will share this piece with you. And then again, I do want to point out in our services subcategory, you will see our instructional services, and they have our academic honor code pieces. So again, our student support services and our liaison, we're using our teachers. We talked about them a little bit earlier. But here is our academic honor code for elementary and for secondary. And with that secondary, you're going to see at the bottom, they do link to each other, which is really nice, but it does have that appropriate AI use flyer, as well as the elementary, and also that academic honor code and artificial intelligence PDF that we just showed you. So both of those are located as links here for you to utilize and support your students as well.
Casey, we did have a question from Kristen.
Yeah, I had a question. I just wanted to make sure I understood the process, because this is really relevant to one of my high schoolers this week. So you had that list of like criteria that might flag a teacher to maybe think that AI was being used. I guess my question is, after they have some suspicions, do they automatically run it through some sort of checker? Or is the suspicions from the teacher what is then used to kind of tell the student that they're in violation? And then also you mentioned like maybe it was just a one-off where the student was really passionate, like, and it wasn't AI. So does the student have a chance to like talk it out with the teacher?
So I think one, I don't know that it is a all or nothing situation from they're going to handle it this way for every student because it may be different based on the content, the student, things like that. So our teachers are trying to look at the full picture. And in that full picture, you're going to see if it meets about 3 of those criteria, they may then also run it through that detector, or it may be that evident that they have enough to say, okay, these 7 lines and then this quote here, and they'll do their due diligence. So they're not going to go off of the whim in any sort of way. Then they'll walk through that academic infraction. So just to kind of quickly walk through that for you, you're going to see that they're going to, that first infraction, they'll be allowed to resubmit for up to 100%. So if it's their first time, it's their first infraction, it's not going to be the end all be all. And then after that, they're going to have those intervention support pieces. We want to build the students' ability to acknowledge what they're doing, for one, and two, we don't want, it's not the idea of impacting the grade as much as impacting the student learning. So they want to make sure that they're walking through that. So you're going to see a second infraction is up to 100% if they complete that assessment, and then 70% after that. So they are walking through those. So it's not just oh, you did it, here's your infraction, you now have a 0 on your assessment. Our teachers do not approach it that way. And you're going to see that it also kind of walks through some of those reminders. So part of that assessment piece, that support piece, is going to make sure that they're understanding the full expectation when it comes to academic honesty. And again, this kind of breaks it down just in another more visual way for your students to understand and those sort of things. So that kind of answer it. They're not going to just close it off and say, well, you did this, because there's 3 things. They're going to do their due diligence, and that due diligence is probably going to vary based on what was submitted, what the scenario was, those sort of things. And they do want to give the students the opportunity to learn from what they did and not impact their grades so significantly. But if it then becomes a constant, right? So I have the student that this is now my 3rd. They're clearly understanding what they're doing, but they're still getting 100%. At some point, it does have to unfortunately impact their grade, because they're not learning from their mistakes. They're not taking initiative to stop and halter. There's also the situation where the student goes submission insane, right? So you have the student that hasn't done anything, then they decide they're going to do something, and they're going to submit 7 assessments, and those 7 assessments are all uploads because that's what they were putting off in the course, and they were all plagiarized, right? That's going to happen. Our teachers are going to step back and work with you. They're going to understand that it was really 1 infraction with 7 pieces, right, instead of 7 individual infractions. So the individual instances are also going to be considered. So if they did it once and they went through that process and got 100%, and then they had another infraction versus 7 submissions and they caught them all at the same time. So our teachers do have that open flexibility. And Janine Petrisco is our director over there, who is going to also support some of those pieces if something is, you know, a repeated situation or it's happening across multiple pieces. So she'll also work with you directly as well if our team needs to bring in her as an additional assist.
There's a hand up. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Did that answer your question, Kristen? Perfect.
Yes.
Brittany, your hand's raised?
Yeah, I just wondered with the high school students and the content teachers, will those content teachers communicate to us as their mentors when this has happened, even whether it be a warning, or would it just be that academic referral form? Like, is there a means of communication? Okay.
Yeah, you are included in all communication that would be around around those types of things.
Yeah, as long as you're associated with the student.
Yeah, if you're not associated with the student, though, that would be the only thing. So if you took on a new student and Tanya wasn't aware that you were associated and we didn't get you associated to that student for some reason, there might be that outlier. But as long as you're associated, you are part of that communication. For 2 points. One, mom and dad's probably going to come to you anyway. So we want to make sure that you understand what's going on and it's a full support. We put our students in the center. So if you really look, this is one of my favorite resources that we have. It's setting up for success. And this image right here is it, right? So you have your student in the center. You have your mentor. So that's that person coaching, supporting. I think of a lot of you on this staff. Then we have our teacher. Sometimes that's a similar person. Sometimes those are separate people. And then we have the pieces that kind of go out. So we want to make sure that we're putting the student in the center. So when those type of things happen, you are that support piece, that bubble around that student to help make that clarification. So you shouldn't be left out in that communication, because it's going to come back to you from the parent perspective. It's going to come back to you from the student. We want you to be able to help support that student. Maybe it's two students that get involved, and then we have another situation, right? So they're copying off of each other. So we want to make sure that full support is there, so you would be included. Sheena, I see the chat going crazy. So can you give me a little bit of background of what's going on and what we still need to address?
Yep. So the only thing that we need to address, there was some conversation going back and forth regarding some VLAC policies and our policies coming together. But be that as it may, Greta had a really good question regarding about submitting uploaded work. If they're typing comments into the comment box, is there any spell check in the comment box of Buzz?
I think it may actually depend on the browser.
Okay.
But let me check here. I think this is an upload if I had to guess. Woohoo. So in the comment box, yep. But I'm in a Google browser. I'm actually in an incognito Google browser. So it might depend on their browser as well, not just the functionality of the system. So I think those are layered. But it does identify in most situations. As far as if I'm going to go into a mastery assessment really quick. Because my next question would be, well, what about those online assessments with an essay? And we're going to find an essay, hopefully. I'm not even sure what course I'm in, so.
There should be at least. Nope.
So it's English language arts at a second grade level. Let's go to a different grade level, and then we'll definitely find one. Sorry if I'm making anybody nauseous. I know
there's a 10, an ELA 10, I thought that was honors. Maybe I missed it.
Let's go ELA 9.
Okay.
Sheena and I test a variety of things, sometimes like how things respond, and I'm going to be honest with you, I would say I've rarely found a mastery assessment that didn't have an essay, so the fact that I found one. So, yep, just typing letters, so you're going to see it in both scenarios. Did that answer? I hope that helped, Greta.
Yep, very helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. So I do know, and I recognize that we're a little bit over, but we did try to pack a lot of things into one session, which I think was great. But I do want to acknowledge we are a little bit over. So we will share with you this resource. Sheena will also share with you some additional follow-up pieces. You're recording additional links that may be applicable. We have a really nice PDF. There was an article that recently came out in Education Week that we pulled down for you. If you want to find that Coca-Cola commercial and actually watch it, you're more than encouraged to. I do apologize for the second time having my LinkedIn, but I didn't know how else to show you how cool that was and how much of a hot topic we recognize that artificial intelligence is. As always, I think our last VLAC session may not have had our survey back in play, but it is back up and running today. This will be included in your follow-up, but we would love to have your feedback on today's session, how you think things went, any recommendations for future sessions, anything we could have done to make this more engaging and supportive for your team. Don't hesitate to let us know. And if you're willing to give us a quote or give us any additional review, if you want to give us a Google review on our services, we would love to hear that. If you feel that our training met your expectations and then some, and if it doesn't, I mean, that's fine too. But Shannon has 2 questions. We'll make sure we get those. But if you wouldn't mind taking the time to do that, if you have your phone out now, I'm going to leave this up as we wrap up these additional questions. But you can use your QR code, and if not, I think Sheena threw it in the chat for you. We'd love to hear your feedback. And then if you have any other feedback or questions, Tanya's here for you as well, and she's welcome. And if you're willing to share a quote about the training, you can also put that in the chat. We'd love to celebrate with you guys. We love doing these sessions with VLAC. It's a great experience for us and a fun time. So we'll go ahead and ask, I think, who was it, Shannon? Shannon, go ahead and unmute if you have those additional questions. And then when we wrap up those additional questions, if there's any other questions, we'll take them and we'll stop our recording when it's most appropriate. So Shannon?
Okay, so for the most part, I can be tech savvy, but when it comes to AI stuff, I'm not as familiar with. So one site that like I've used before is like Grammarly, where you can like paste your stuff, like your essay, and then have it like Grammarly like help correct stuff and that. Is that like AI detection that we're thinking of, or is it more of like cutting and pasting? Like that, I think that's the part where I'm trying to figure out
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it's kind of like if I write my essay in Word and Word gives me grammatic suggestions, Grammarly is kind of doing that. So it's checking for grammatical. So it's things that you create. It's checking for the grammatic pieces. So it's kind of like half dozen of one. No, I'm not going to say it. It's, I'm going to say it wrong, Sheena. It's kind of two different things from the perspective of that's helping the student increase their ability to write and giving them suggestions. So they still often have to make a decision on what they're saying, right? So there, and there, maybe I spelled one wrong. It's telling me that maybe I should fix that. In other cases, if I'm taking an assessment on fixing my sentences and I put it into Word or Grammarly and I type it, that could be a version of cheating, but that's going to be harder for us to understand and detect because the student's still going to only submit their correct answer. So when they're talking AI, they're talking about things like Copilot, ChatGPT. There's another one for Google. They're like built-in artificial intelligence. So what I can do is I can go into these websites or applications, and again, it's based on what the student's computer is, those sort of things. So sometimes if it's a school-issued computer, those things are blocked, but a student can still get it on their phone or another device and still be smart, right? They can still go do that. What this is doing is I can give a prompt, and I can tell them, today is Sheena's birthday. Please write her a nice birthday message with these 3 facts and a closing. And it'll actually produce a sample writing. I can do that from almost anything. And then the student would be copying and pasting whatever that prompt response was in as their submission, which it clearly wasn't. With AI, though, it's artificial intelligence. So it doesn't understand tone, voice, my tone and voice. Scary enough, over time, if you use the same functionality, you pay for it, it can. But initially off the bat, that's where you're going to see the things that we talked about in that PDF from our teachers. You're going to see that it's going to have these pieces. So when we talk about artificial intelligence usage, we're kind of talking more about along those lines versus a Grammarly that's fixing what you did versus generating what you did, right? So that artificial intelligence is generating. You'll also see here that proper use. So there is a time and place for these AIs. It is great for brainstorming, not great for copying and pasting those responses. It is great for explaining a tricky topic. Maybe I went through my whole lesson and I still don't understand it. There are built-in tutoring AIs. There are AIs that will answer a question for you, summarize it differently, and you can keep asking it, I need another example, please write differently. You can do those. But again, then using it to create something authentic and saying that is your authentic piece would be the same as plagiarizing because it's not your words that are using. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, like I think it helped more. It was just one of those that, like I said, I grade more with 5th graders, and there's sometimes where they'll submit something that I'm like, did a 5th grader write this, or should I be looking at Google for this?
And that could be an instance where so if you're getting that, I wonder, it's probably because it was something that doesn't sound like that student based on things that you've interacted with that student and engaged and built that relationship with, right? Or it's not going to be something because it's really large words or transitions that you haven't taught yet or content you haven't gone over. If you're getting those pieces, that's when you might want to filter it through a plagiarism checker or one of those ChatGPT options that are free that are out there. And as a team, maybe you guys can decide what those ones are. Did you have an additional question, Shannon? I thought it said that you had.
I do, but it has nothing really to do with like this AI stuff and that. That's why I was like, can I stay on after so I didn't hold up my coworkers?
No, that's fine. We'll go ahead and stop the recording, Sheena, if you wouldn't mind stopping it and starting to prep that follow-up. But Shannon, go ahead and ask your other question. We'll see how we can help you.
Okay, so I the beginning of the semester have a student who had 50% reduced assignments, and like I went in, created my